Alright, so Survivor Series is the next pay-per-view, and this year's show has the potential of being one of the best Survivor Series in a very long time, because they've added in NXT in there. For the first time, it's going to be Raw versus SmackDown versus NXT, which ups the excitement and makes it more unpredictable, because now you got three brands battling it out, so it's not just, alright, there's Raw win this year, there's SmackDown win this year, you got NXT in there, so maybe they win, who knows. But the potential that they have with this is big, because if you just look at the probable matches, the match card for this, it could be a really good show, at least on paper. Obviously, anything could disappoint when it actually happens, but on paper, this could be very good. So here's what I did. I put up a match card together of matches that I think are very probable to happen at Survivor Series, based on the formula that they've used for the past few Survivor Series, which is basically champions versus champions and 5-on-5 matches. So let's start this with the most obvious match, the one that everybody thought of once Bray Wyatt won the Universal Championship, and then we got the announcement that NXT is now part of Survivor Series. Well, hey, usually it's the Universal Champion versus the WWE Champion, and now that NXT's in there, Universal Champ versus WWE Champ versus NXT Champ, so Bray Wyatt versus Brock Lesnar versus Adam Cole, and that's an interesting match. And it's not even that it's an unpredictable match, because I think everybody expects that Adam Cole's going to lose that match, either Bray or Brock's going to pin him, but just these three up against each other for a number of reasons is interesting and could be a good match. Brock Lesnar tends to do well against smaller guys. Adam Cole is a smaller guy. Brock Lesnar tends to have some good multi-man matches. This is a multi-man match. And number three, people want to see Brock Lesnar versus Bray Wyatt, because it's the two most OP guys in the WWE. They take the most finishers and get off, especially Bray Wyatt. He's the more OP of the two. And the thing is, WWE's not going to give you Brock Lesnar versus Bray Wyatt, at least not anytime soon. So this is probably the closest we would get to a one-on-one Brock versus Bray match, which might sound cool on paper, like, oh, Brock Lesnar versus Bray Wyatt, who's going to win that? Both unstoppable. But when you actually see the match, it'd probably be trash. I mean, think about it. Brock Lesnar spams German suplexes. He kicks out of a ton of finishers. The Fiend kicks out of a ton of finishers. It'd be a finisher fest, a spam fest. You see how people react to the curb stomp spam. I don't like it. I know a bunch of people also don't like it. The match will probably suck one-on-one between the two, so actually we're better off getting this triple threat match. So yeah, this is likely going to be the main event. Now, worst case scenario, let's say this match doesn't take place because Brock decided to go to Raw because he wants to go after Rey Mysterio. Let's say they have that match at Survivor Series. That's still another great match. Like I said, Brock does great against the smaller guys. I'd love to see Brock destroy Rey Mysterio. I don't think anybody expects Rey to beat him if that match actually takes place, but I think it'd be a fun match. And then on the other side of things, you could then have the Universal Champion go one-on-one with the NXT Champion, so Bray Wyatt versus Adam Cole. So I feel like either way, whatever happens, we should be in for some good main events at Survivor Series. Now moving on, another likely match would be Bayley versus Shayna Baszler versus Becky Lynch. We already had Shayna Baszler attack Bayley. Usually it's the Raw Women's Champion versus the SmackDown Women's Champion. Now you got NXT in there, so triple threat match. This could also be a good match, and the thing is, with them trying to push NXT here, we could see Shayna Baszler pick up the win here. Because Adam Cole certainly ain't picking up the win for his team in that triple threat match if that actually happens, or the one-on-one match if that happens too. But yeah, another triple threat champ versus champ versus champ. And then another triple threat champ versus champ versus champ. The Revival versus the Viking Raiders versus Undisputed Era. The tag team champions of each show going up against each other. Now the thing is, Revival was supposed to go up against the New Day for the tag team titles. They were supposed to defend the titles against Kofi and Big E on SmackDown. Obviously that didn't happen because of the travel issues. Well, that could still happen on next week's SmackDown, we don't know. So if it does happen, this could turn into the New Day versus the Viking Raiders versus Undisputed Era. The past few years at Survivor Series, they've had title changes before the shows that affected what actually happened at Survivor Series. Like for instance, when we were supposed to have Jinder versus Brock, Jinder lost the title to AJ, so it ended up being AJ versus Brock at Survivor Series. The following year, supposed to be AJ versus Brock in a rematch. Daniel Bryan beats AJ for the championship, and so it was Bryan versus Brock. So could change here as well. Whichever way it goes, I think it'll make for a good tag team match. And then we move on to another triple threat. That's the thing, a lot of triple threats here because it is three brands fighting it out. And if they want to give an opportunity for each brand to get some points, this is kind of the way I imagine they'll go. So now we're talking about the secondary champions. So AJ Styles, the US champ representing Raw, versus the North American champion Roderick Strong representing NXT, versus possibly Daniel Bryan representing SmackDown as the IC champion. Now I know the current IC champ is Nakamura, But the thing is, if they keep it at Nakamura versus Strong versus AJ Styles, then that's 3 heels. And yes, I know, if the main event ends up being Adam versus Borg versus Bray, that's also 3 heels, but that's also a different situation because we've seen this so many times before. Brock Lesnar honestly goes from face to heel a ton of times. He's kind of a tweener. It depends on the feud, the match that he's in, the opponent that he's facing off against. Sometimes he's the face, sometimes he's the heel. Depending on the situation, the fans boo him or cheer him. And as far as Bray Wyatt goes, the Fiend goes, the people love the Fiend, so they actually cheer the Fiend over some of the faces. And when it comes to Adam Cole, he's the one this time around coming from NXT, so I think there's going to be some support for him too and cheers for him. So in a lot of ways, I think there's going to be a lot of cheering going on in the main event. This, on the other hand, when we're talking about Nakamura and AJ Styles, for instance, they kind of follow more the traditional heel routes, where they're more heels and it doesn't really change depending on the situation. And with them having that segment on SmackDown 2 weeks ago where Nakamura and Sami Zayn tried to get Bryan on their side, seems like that's going to go somewhere. And with the past few years, like I've said, champions or titles have changed hands like right before the pay-per-view, which has changed the matches on the pay-per-views. I could totally see Daniel Bryan getting an IC title match against Nakamura, winning the title, and then all of a sudden it's Bryan versus AJ versus Strong. And hey, Bryan and AJ kind of have some unfinished business with Bryan winning the title off of AJ, except now the roles are kind of reversed. Except now the roles are kind of reversed with AJ being the heel and Daniel Bryan being the face, and you got Strong in there. This could actually be the match of the night if it ends up happening. Now, moving on to the traditional 5 versus 5 matches. So, in this case, I'm actually not going to go with a triple threat type of situation. I'm not going with 5 superstars on SmackDown, 5 on Raw, 5 on NXT, all going up against each other, because one thing that's remained a part of Survivor Series, despite the changes that they've had and such, is the traditional 5 on 5. So I think they'll still have just a 5 on 5 match, so a total of 10 superstars, and they can do it by having both Raw and SmackDown superstars team up to take on NXT. NXT can go ahead and attack Raw as well, so now both Raw and SmackDown are annoyed with NXT. They team up to take on NXT, and I think that'd be the best way to go about it, because if they go with 3 teams here, number 1, it's going to be like the first Survivor Series where they don't have a traditional 5 on 5, so they're going to break the streak that they've had. And also, it's kind of too much. It's too much with the 3s. So I'm thinking for the men's 5 on 5, Roman and Seth would definitely be on the same team, along with maybe like Braun Strowman and who else? I don't know, a bunch of other wrestlers from Raw and SmackDown. On NXT, I could definitely see Ciampa and Gargano on the same team, possibly with Finn in there, because you know they always have that one team where they're like, oh, I don't know if these superstars can cooperate together. Can they work together? Is one of them going to turn on the other? Possibly with, who else? Keith Lee, and Matt Riddle. Could totally see those guys being in the NXT team. And on the women's side, same thing here. Raw and SmackDown women together versus NXT women. I could totally see Bianca Belair, Rhea Ripley together on one team in NXT along with other NXT stars. And on the Raw and SmackDown team, it could be like Sasha Banks, Charlotte, Alexa Bliss, along with the Kabuki Warriors. And speaking of the Kabuki Warriors and championships, if you notice, all the matches that I just talked about are all matches involving champions, but non-title matches, where the titles actually aren't on the line. So, for a championship match, what they could do is have the Cruiserweight Champion, who's now on NXT, defend the title against a Raw and a SmackDown superstar in another triple threat, except this time for a championship. And the interesting thing here would be that, hey, the championship could go to another show if one of these superstars, other superstars, win the title. So I was thinking it could be Leo Rush versus Humberto, because they're clearly pushing him on Raw right now. And on SmackDown, the most over cruiserweight guy there is Ali. So I think Leo Rush versus Humberto versus Ali would make for a fine match. That could actually be also the match of the night. This could be a really good match as well. Oh yeah, one more thing. It's totally possible that the Kabuki Warriors also go ahead and defend the tag team titles, but I'm not sure which team from NXT that defend the tag team titles against. They already beat Tegan Nox and Dakota Kai, so I don't know who else they could take on from NXT. That's why I'm thinking they might be involved in the 5-on-5 women's match instead. But anyways, that sums up my match card prediction for Survivor Series, but this is just what I think is going to happen. In the comment section, let me know which matches you think you'll see on the card. You might think I'm completely off, and you might think that there's going to be some completely different matches on the show. So let me know, and let's see if somebody can call most of the matches. Aside from that, if you enjoyed the video, click the like button down below. Follow me on Twitter, I post stuff on there sometimes. And with that said, I'm out. See ya.